And good evening. It's July 11th, 2024. It's 7:11, yeah? Well, welcome back to another season and another episode of Sons of the Father. And because we're going to continue our discussion on The Chosen, this is new up season 4, of course, created by Dallas Jenkins. And tonight, we're going to be exploring season 4, episode 2, Confessions. During this series, my dad, John Warren, my brother, Jim Warren, and of course myself, we're going to be having a conversation and reflecting on things that have impacted us along our journey. So, again this evening, welcome to the Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet. And of course, before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, it's when you click the subscribe button. Those reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that's when you click that like button, because that is the way the YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. So, confessions. Oddly enough, I might add admissions as well, but
Yeah,
there you
true.
go. There you go. So, let's talk.
Confessions. I didn't. To me, it was. I would say overwhelming. How much
Mm.
information, how much planting, pointing us in a direction of where they were going to go as a group. Uh, and that at the opening scene, I think, was quite dramatic, with Jesus in the distance, and then the camera zooming in on him. You're waiting. What the heck are they going to say? What are they going to do here? What is he? Hi, everybody. Where's he going to go with this? And I thought it was interesting that here comes John, and I really thought it was dramatic when he just broke the chains, and he says they can no longer hold me. And I think that on good days, I feel that Satan
Mm.
has no hold on me, that I am free in Christ, and I can rely
Mm.
on Him, and He will become to my defense as He's done in the series so far. Um, but Jesus and Andrew talking and beginning to step into His role.
Mm.
He's uh, Andrew's asking him questions, and Jesus all of a sudden this I don't know about you guys, but I know when I used to go on my on my trips and lead teams, they'd get you get kind of tied up. Things would happen, and then all of a sudden, God would give me an idea, or somebody would say something, and I'd say, "That's it. That's what we're going to do." Okay, okay, and that's what he said. Went over, ripped the curtains open, says, "Get everybody together. It's time to start, talking." And of course, they've each got their own agenda. They're in a group, but they don't know where they're going. They don't know what they're doing. You've got Thomas and Raymond. They got their little agenda going on. And you've got other guys that are just, what's he doing? When John is gone and he's confused and all sorts of things. Um, but as this episode started to unfold, uh, I I kept Jesus is focusing less on healing now and more on setting the foundation for where he's going and what's going to happen. And all these other little stories that are going on within the story. You got the rabbis all getting together, and they're making Shmuel, they're raising him up. You got Atticus going to Baldy's house and saying, "You got to do something. Yeah, you got you got to." And he's doesn't know what Atticus is talking about, and he says, "You've got to do something about Jesus." and it's all of this confusion. There's a whole lot of to me in this episode, just a whole lot of confusion, and then the pieces start coming together. That's why I think this is probably a 2-episode one, because you've got all the talk about things, and then you start seeing things falling into place. And I didn't really, I only saw the entire episode once, because I didn't want to start, as Bob, you've accused me of doing a couple of times. I'm getting ahead of myself and I'm going down the road because yeah, but wait till so and so gets in. So now I don't even really know what's happening, except I do know that things happen that are kind of a shocker. But that's what Dallas is doing with us. He's taking us on a journey of what he thinks was what was happening, and things that the disciples were saying, people around them might have been saying. And I've really enjoyed that part of it and been looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about it. So, Jim, what you got
Wait,
to
hold on.
say?
I want us to remember in what we're opening with this, with Jesus, is that we're in Shiva. Okay. You are in a period of mourning. And he's in a period of mourning.
Mhm.
If you pay attention to Jesus' clothing, he's still in the same outfit that he had on when he tore his clothes before. So there's an expected mourning period going on. And that's part of the element as this story unfolds. That he's in that traditional mourning point. He's not doing anything unusual, doing everything right, on line with that. And it's like, okay, so then what am I going to do within this mourning period? So we kind of remember that's our launch point, is that he's coming from that. That's the thought process that's going on with him at that time, and to do that. But go ahead, Jimbo.
Well, and it's hard, and you may be able to bring some light to it when you start talking more of what is Shiva in terms of what kinds of conduct is supposed to be happening. Again, it's also a reminder to us that this is biblical fiction. We don't know that Jesus was doing these things specifically, although I absolutely love the way Dallas tied in some of the topics that we see in scripture into the umbrella of Shiva and what Jesus was doing. So that part was fun. And I'm the same way. It's like there's so much to unpack in this one. When you're starting out with Jesus's dream, again, not in scripture, fun to kind of connect with. And I had to keep going back to, I think what Dallas is trying to do is connect with the heart of what God is doing and what Jesus was doing, and not so much the specifics. And even some of it felt like there were a lot of liberties again taken, but still I think within the thematic material. And so that part was good. And you've got, Peter and Matthew and all that was going on between them. And you've got Gaius and Matthew and their dialogue, and Jesus with Thomas and Rama, and their whole engagement, and what that started to bring out a whole nother conversation. And this one, to me, it's interesting, like you said, it's confessions or admissions. This felt like, the first episode, which is the last episode, John's death definitely was catalyzing for what's going to be happening now. And this felt like more of the changing of the tide. The direction is shifting. Jesus has been very gracious and loving and healing and all those things. And all of a sudden, he got real strong in some of his language. It was like, oh, there's a shift there with Jesus. And we see the shift with the government, and they're saying, hey, we've got to do something about this Jesus. And with the religious leadership, hey, Jesus is causing problems. Now it's like now everybody's starting to take action. These are the first steps toward what we know is obviously coming. And so we see this kind of shift in everything. Peter and his name change. And all of a sudden he's going, now what am I supposed to do, with this whole thing and this weight that I feel like I've got on me? So there's a whole lot here that is revving up now, more so than it has been. There's been more subtle. Now it's a little more direct, and it'll be fun to kind of unpack all that.
Yeah, they've in my head, I was picturing it's the chess game has begun. But now you're in Star Trek where it's
I like that.
three-dimensional and three people playing, it's not a two-man chess game.
Mhm.
So you basically have Jesus doing his whatever agenda that we'll see as it unfolds. Rome, and they're not aggressive at this point. Atticus comes up and says, "We need to do something."
Yeah.
He doesn't know what. He just knows
He feels it more.
this is right. It's feeling like
Mhm.
something, and
Mhm.
he better get, because the rest of the guys are going. There's not unrest. These people are not. They're not looking at this point. We merely have the precursors are there. The moves are set up. Now it's going to get
Mhm.
more aggressive, right? In those setups, you have the most aggressive in this. I would put Rome at the bottom. I would put Jesus in the middle, and I'd put the Sanhedrin at the top, right? I kind of want to remember that when we do this. Now we have some delineation. So let's not throw all of leadership hierarchy under the bus. Let's say the Sanhedrin is making decisions now, and the players are put in place. Some of them were introduced not acting the way we expected them to be in the Sanhedrin. Interesting. As we see this kind of unfold slowly but surely. Again, like early moves of a chess game, but it's definitely game on. The pawns are out, things are shifting around.
It's Sherlockish.
Yeah, there was a line early in the show where it says, "Can you imagine what your life would be like if you were assigned to a different post?" That's when Shmuel is talking, right? In the talk, and he says, and he's realized, I don't even wanna. That's not. I'm not. Okay. So one of the early points that we have that I think is worth of discussion, and this is where we're probably going to agree to disagree on some things, which will be fun for the three of us. Where Jesus was saying his intention is not to divide families. Okay, which I liked. His intention is not to divide. Where it says, I'm going to pit brother against brother, da-da-da. The verbiage in this, when you take it and you can say the words a certain way, and it comes across as that. You can say the words another way, and it comes, look, I'm not here to divide, but it will happen. There will be people that will do this and do that. Okay? I get it. I do. Okay? And I understand that. I like that verbiage in this. And again, not knowing where this is going to take us. So this kind of the fun of doing this. We have this. Okay, so now you have following Jesus and honoring your mother and your father. Okay? And we get this point to where now they go to him to talk about a wedding. And I'm going to throw it out there that me, Bob, right now in this says, I don't think Jesus should marry them. And I'll tell you why. Because yes, you can follow Jesus, but he would be not honoring the Father's wishes if they don't. Is that a religious point to make? Is that not? I don't know. All I know is that's not honoring their Father's choice. And you go, and so you get into an interesting discussion. So I just threw my part out there. I know you're probably going to have issue with that. So take a swing.
Well, I'll tell you something that happened to me when I started going to church with you guys, and I decided to go forward and get baptized. If you remember, your grandmother came to the baptism when I was baptized.
I
I
remember
don't know
that.
if you remember that or not. And somebody came up afterwards and said, "Oh, it's so precious. Your mother was back there crying when you were being baptized." And I said, "You got to realize she wasn't crying out of happiness. She was crying because she felt that I was going to hell."
Mm-hmm.
Because Catholics believed you got baptized. I was baptized as an infant,
Mhm.
circumcised, baptized. It just went just the way the Catholics did it.
Mhm.
And she was crushed by that, but she still came and honored me. So, because I thought the same thing about the wedding and Jesus and all that. Um, so I don't know where I stand on that. But your grandmother didn't want us to get married. She was ready to pay for everything with you, Bob.
Right. Right.
The birth.
Right.
We never talked about an abortion.
Hmm.
That never came up that I know of.
Right.
Now it might have come up in Jack's family, your mom's family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. So there's all kinds of things that happen in real life that aren't, what we would say perfectly in line with
Right.
what, anyway. So I
Right.
thought that was interesting that God brought that to mind
Mhm.
when all this was going down.
Well, it's an interesting point that they're saying because I follow Jesus, that means that we should get married because we made the decision to do it, aside from our father, which had been the deal. So, okay, so Jimmy, go. You're smiling enough, so I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's so easy for us
Oh, yeah.
to sit back and analyze this, outside of the context of,
Oh yeah.
my kids or,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But if you were to take Jesus at what he was talking about, if you follow me, it may cause division in the family. That's about following Christ.
Right.
That's a separate issue from getting married.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do people have the freedom, to choose? Back then, it was a different culture.
Mhm.
We live in a world where you get to pick your mate. In that culture, oftentimes it was picked for you,
Yeah.
or you had to honor your parents in whatever they chose,
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whether Jesus should or shouldn't have, kind of reminds me of some discussions I've had with other pastors who are in cultures, situations where you've got two people who are same sex and say they love Jesus, are committed to each other in a monogamous relationship. Should you do the wedding? That's a good question. And I don't know that I could give an answer to that. That would be one I'd have to literally go to God and say, okay, you got to give me some insight here because I don't know. And I think Jesus, he was quiet for a little while. He actually was silent. And I don't know if he was saying, okay, God, I only do what you tell me to do. And that's it. Don't know what he was told. But I do see that there is a difference between a choice in marriage outside of the tradition, the honoring of the parents, and following Christ, and what that implication is.
Right, and that's what I kind of wanted to make sure that we keep focus on, because that should be the element in the story, because they're the ones that put it out there. Once they put it out there for discussion, then it's ours to chat about. But that kind of got me a little bit, because there's a difference. Oh yeah, because they're apologists. That's not what Jesus said when he said it divided based on your choice to follow. Other choices are other things. And he didn't marry them. He said, well, we're going to take care. We'll deal with this after his mourning
details
period.
Later.
Yeah.
Yep.
That TBD. Yeah. TBD. So it's interesting. I thought something cute, just to lighten it after that, was Simon taking Thomas aside. Again, both of these are traditionally related issues. So it's fair. Right. You're right, Jimmy, because you mentioned that from culturally speaking, it's hard to put ourselves in that culture, because today we'd say, well, of course you let them get married, and you go, they don't need your permission. It's a very different culture. But the same twist there, where you go, no, she doesn't want anything. It's Simon's going, come on, son, let me take you over here and have a little talk. And Jesus was like, you just go have that conversation. I thought that was cute. And to be fair, then, where we were ready to throw tradition under the bus with the aforementioned statement, now all of a sudden it makes you go, oh.
Yeah.
Just one of those fun things to think in, because we do. It's a lot of times we want to toss tradition under the bus. And
we want to overlay our tradition on
or
top
backwards
of theirs. And
yeah. For sure.
Exactly.
For sure. And that was one of those deals. I thought the banter with Shmuel, trying to keep this in order so that we go when we get to where we're getting, we're not jumping ahead of ourselves. When we get the announcement, they tell us, right, that he's being promoted to the Sanhedrin. But we got a little glimpse into a previous episode where Jesus and him, and they said, come pray with me. And we never got any feedback from that. There was no, just that was tossed out there. So we get a mental aha moment. It's not a flashback because they never take us there, but we get that, and it has impacted him deeply. And now he's struggling with this whole thing. Is the struggle, the pomp, the circumstance, the motivation, the drive, not asking questions and realizing he has caused me to think differently, like Nicodemus, right? Same type of deal.
Yanni, the guy that was talking with Shmuel when he was in the tailor, that whole thing there, he was already questioning it because in his heart, and then he said, if it hadn't been for you, we never would have nailed John the Baptist. And he goes, oh my gosh, I caused him to be killed. And all these things are going on in his head that these guys know nothing about. And he's just, this turmoil is just churning in him. And we do that in ourselves, in my own life. Somebody will start talking to me about something, and because I've been there, I've seen that happen. You want to say, don't do that, but you're talking to a person, say it's 40 years old or 50 years old. And if you told me that when I was 40 or 50, I would have said, yeah, but I got this under control. And the other guys don't even know what's going on in Shmuel's head. They don't know that he's struggling. And the other guy, when Caiaphas was up there rattling on, wait a minute. What are you talking about here? This guy hasn't done anything. You sit down. And he just cut the guy off. So there isn't, as you guys have pointed out earlier, all of the Sanhedrin, all of the rabbis aren't against Jesus. And so that's, to me, that this episode was just starting all of these futures as it's going to go down different roads. Peter's going to take his down. We know what happens with the brothers, and their mother gets, all kinds of things are starting right now. With this episode, with this conversation, is just loaded. And as I think it was Andrew that said to him, what'd you bring us here for? And Judas said the same. Why are we even here? This is an evil place. And he said, where would John be? Would he be afraid of this cave that's here? Would he? And that's a thing. When I was in other countries, and as you guys have pointed out, it's a different culture. And I would say something, and one of my friends that lived there would step in and clarify it, but in a different way, so that it was acceptable and understandable, which it wasn't the way the way that I was going with it because I didn't understand their culture.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing here. Is there all these stories are getting formed, and they're all going to take legs
Mhm.
with it. So I'm
Let's dissect. Let's a little bit, because this will take us. Probably we can wrap the episode up just talking
Mhm.
about this particular topic. But so we have Jesus going there.
Mhm.
Okay. We have the event there. Now, we heard him say something like, "Where would John be?" Okay. Now, let's pay attention to what had happened. One, he did not address anybody there.
no.
He was
I
not
wondered
there
about that.
to tear down that place. He was not there to just, he was there to talk to his people about
Yeah.
something. Okay. So people that they love to go, where would it be to, I want to go stand in front of the strip club and bark at people coming out the door. It's like, no,
You're talking to your brother now. That's
No.
what he used to do.
Oh, wait, I've done that.
no.
In my
Okay.
younger
This is me.
years.
No. And I'm not, and go on record, guys in my men's group will know that this is not unknown. This is not a new thing for me, is that I'm not a fan of the street preacher on the corner hollering at people, sandwich board, hell and damnation. I am not a fan of that at all. And we don't see this here. And specifically, we don't see this here. He pulls his people in. They're out there and he says, step in. His tone is he's talking to his people. He's using this environment as a stepping stone for some stuff. We'll get into the stone pebble rock thing here in a little bit. But we're at a point where he's not there to tear that place down physically, right? We'll deal with the other down the road. But he's talking to his people. And he's trying to make a point clear in the midst of what he's going through, Sheba. So we remember, because the context takes us there. That's what they're saying. Why are we going there? We're in Sheba. Is this the right thing to do? And he said, his comment about John is that I am addressing the John issue in my mourning. I am addressing the John issue on this. It's just how he does it, which is a different deal. So that's it. Within that, the Peter name change. So we get this point here, and they go to look. It's an awkward moment there. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about awkward. It certainly brought out. You could hear the brothers already talking about it. You could hear his brother comes up and hugs him. You know, Peter, the rock, and Jesus didn't try to defend it. He just said it and dropped it. And now knowing that you're going to get some kick feedback or pushback on it, because up until that point, Peter hasn't shown himself as a rock or as a leader. He's got opinions. He's got a strong way about him, but it doesn't show him as the compassionate, caring leader that he becomes. And so I thought it was an interesting setting to where he says that. And now we get to see what unfolds, how that unfolds. That and many other things. I mean, Shmuel, at the right there, the last thing I read, he was telling, I'm going to go look for Jesus. I mean, there's all kinds of little things in there that are just
Yeah. A dad just froze. So
the old days
there you go.
were they were continuing episodes, and so something would happen, at the mouth of the cave, and the gorilla would come to the mouth of the cave, and there's your hero. Well, that's the thing right there. He's giving all of this information, but he's not giving any of the reason behind it or any of his thinking yet. And I that makes me want to turn the page for the next chapter.
Jimmy, what do you know about the whole rock? Peter, yeah, give me the theological twist, because understand they built an entire theology on this, and I have a varying thought on it, but
They've built a whole aspect of the church. I mean, the whole Catholic Church is built on that one
right
verse
Yeah.
or statement, that
Yeah.
Jesus makes.
right in context or not in context. Yes.
Yeah. It is still debated, and I loved what Dallas did with it, and the dialogue that went on, and the questioning that the disciples had. It's not clear. It's not set in stone, pun intended, how this is supposed to be interpreted, whether it was talking about Peter himself or the statement that Peter made,
Right.
that's what Jesus is building the church on. It is not clear.
And that's where I want to go with that, is just that.
Yeah.
The statement Peter makes, not about Peter. So he says, what he's saying is a Torah statement. What he's saying is, look, that statement, that's Torah, that's the prophets, everything wrapped in. He said, you're him. There you go. On that, this is what this whole thing builds on, that you've declared me Messiah. And he's the strongest one to say that, right? He goes and says it. It's interesting how they roll on this versus the name deal. But then they're going to walk down the path of that. They're going to let that banter roll. They'll probably take that theological position, and I'm not. I get it. I think that we have an issue with it when you look at the text itself and you realize you have the deal. We've just created this particular setup, but they've now made that point an awkward point, which I liked. I like that, and it's far from being resolved. Far from being resolved.
And it's going to play into some more stuff down the road, and even looking at all the different commentators over the years, even those who take the total opposite, that it's not the Catholic Church built on Peter himself kind of thing, and say that it's on the statement of what he said. Everyone will still say there was definitely some implication that Peter was going to be strategic in the growth of the church. And we see that played out, obviously, in his role.
Right.
And so that, to me, that's what Peter's contending with. It's like, okay, all of a sudden now, we're all going to be part of this, but he's going, what's my part in it? And he's beginning to look at it probably more directly because of that statement. And then I think the other disciples eventually are going to get there too. It's like, what is our part in this whole scheme that Jesus is doing?
Yeah, that's what I liked about this as we wrap this up. That we're seeing shift. They're starting to wrestle with it. We're going to talk about the uncomfort with this and the James and John thing. We're back again to people are posturing for positions, and it's because they're posturing for positions because they think that he's there to overthrow Rome. Everybody's in a physical posturing position. No, I shouldn't. Everybody. The half of the disciples are, the other half aren't sure. Just to be fair, because they're split. Half on one side, half on the other. I thought Z's one what was really funny. Since we have another one, can I get my name back? No.
No. That was
That's
great.
my funny thing. No, you don't get your name back. You're still going to call you Z. That's the way it's going to be. But what that means, we'll get to this next week, because that's where we're going to start to roll this. What does that mean? And because it's going to mean a lot. Jimmy, you're right. Is that on the statement that he makes? How does that play out, and how does that work? Yeah, and that'll be fun as we get to this. So there's at least going to be part 2. We'll see if it takes us any further, right? So And I want everybody to remember that if you have any questions, you are always welcome to email them at bob@TheDustyFeet.com or leave it in the comments. Just the emails, again, just keeps it, not everybody else is going to banner and wave and roll around on it, because we'll be happy to ponder other ideas and other questions as they come up. We're more than welcome to address them. That's the fun of us, okay? So again, thank you all. Shalom, shalom, and thanks for being with us tonight with another Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet.
Good night.